artists and animators. To celebrate Toon Boom Animation's 30th anniversary, we are hosting virtual studio tours with studios that make exceptional use of Harmony and Storyboard Pro. Joining us for this episode are Graham MacDonald, Anthony Ng, and Kim Seegobin from Mercury Filmworks. Mercury Filmworks is an independent animation studio headquartered in Ottawa, which developed a reputation for producing work that pushes the boundaries of 2D rigged animation. Their production credits include animated series and feature films such as Kid Cosmic, The Ghost and Molly McGee, Strange Planet, as well as the Bob's Burgers movie. So, Graham, Anthony, and Kim, welcome to the stream.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's just jump right into it. The first question I want to ask is, what is your role at Mercury Filmworks, and what does a typical day in your role look like? And Kim, let's start with you.
So I'm the talent manager here at Mercury. Typical day doesn't really exist in my world, which is great. It keeps it fun. It keeps things interesting. But my role is to be here to support our artists, support our leaders with all HR initiatives, help with career development, various training initiatives, support and manage our coaching program that we have in place to help our artists grow and develop, help with our recruitment efforts and getting new artists onboarded properly into our studio, and then to help foster a studio that's fully engaged.
Yeah, I mean, talent development and mentorship are two areas that I always see a lot of interest in. Why do you feel those are really important to animation?
Because I think that we're always able to grow. We're always able to grow. The industry is constantly changing and evolving, and everyone's here to really learn from one another. In our studio, we really foster mentorship, so that people, regardless of where they're at in their career, whether an artist is working with us as part of their internship or they've been in the industry for 20 plus years, there's always an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah, I think that can make a studio very attractive for like early career talent too. So that's really cool to see. Anthony, could you talk a little bit about your day-to-day role? Like, what is your role at Mercury Filmworks, and what does a typical day in your role look like?
Sure. So I'm head of build and rigging, and for myself and the supervisors, day-to-day differs at the beginning of a production when all the designs come in and we're nailing down the animation style. It's a lot more hectic. There's a lot more planning involved. We'll work with the directors. We'll work with the animation supervisors to really sort of evaluate what they need, and then we build templates for what our rigs are going to look like. And then once all that's in place, then it becomes more of a day-to-day. And once the production gets rolling, then it really is just a matter of assigning assets, getting assets built, getting them into the library, and then further support for animation, like seeing if they have any changes that they need to the build, any part requests that they have, and sort of becomes more maintenance at that point.
And Graham, what is your role at Mercury Filmworks, and what does a typical day in your role look like?
So I'm a director here at Mercury, which can mean a couple different things. Right, for me right now, I'm a series director for a show for Apple TV. But at Mercury, a director can also mean sort of like I guess it can be described as like a studio director for or an overseas director almost for companies like Netflix or Disney, where the responsibilities sort of involve the overseeing of like all the production from the artistic side in terms of like layout, BG, animation, effects, and compositing. And the typical day generally is the week. I usually have the week sort of structured, so that the day's not. I don't have like a typical day. It's like a typical week, I guess you could say. Where one day I'll just be involved in storyboards. The next day I'm involved in edit. Next day I'm involved in animation launches and reviews and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much the day-to-day sort of, or I guess week-to-week aspect of what my job looks like.
So from your point of view, you sort of, you oversee or at least have a hand in all aspects of the animation production pipeline of a production.
Yes, yeah. So for like on the like Kid Cosmic or Wander Over Yonder, or the Mickey Mouse shorts, that was the role I had with it. And I come from the animation department, so I always had a special emphasis on the actual animation portion of the production. So, but yeah, feeding into the backgrounds to make sure the background stage the characters well, make sure that the compositing is done according to the designs that are sent and just the needs of the show, and make sure that the character animation, is following the storyboard and the animatic, but also adding that extra bit of acting and personality type animation that I think Mercury is known for.
Yeah, well, let's get into that a little bit more then. How do you describe Mercury Filmworks and the type of animation that your studio specializes in? Let's start with you, Graham.
Mercury Filmworks, we're sort of, I guess, like a mid-size boutique kind of operation. It's privately owned. It's not like a large company or owned by a large company.
Can't get stocks in Mercury Filmworks.
Not yet, no. And yeah, I think the type of animation we do is we're not really typecast in terms of, aside from I guess the type of animation we do is like quality animation, and that can encompass a whole slew of styles. If it's like cartoony and snappy animation like the Mickey Mouse shorts, or like preschool animation like Give the Mouse a Cookie, or a more feature-esque type animation like the Tangled series, we can sort of, there's a whole gamut of the type of animation that styles that we do, but the type is always, I think, with an emphasis on the quality, is always the main focus.
Kim, from your point of view, how do you describe Mercury Filmworks and what sets it apart from other studios?
Few things that stand out to me immediately is it's such a great team environment, collaborative environment. Everyone collectively works together to accomplish the great things that we do. We are, in a culture of mentorship and coaching. Everyone's here to support one another. It's a very creative, safe space. So a safe space where people can be creative and they can express themselves without any judgment. We are constantly looking at ways that we can push the boundaries and be innovative in everything that we do, and go beyond the expected of what's expected of us. And we're always looking for new and exciting ways that we can improve. Our people have the commitment to never give up and an absolute passion for what they do. And it's something that it really just blows my mind every day that I'm here to see the talent that we have in our studio and the passion people have to do their job.
Yeah, I think one thing that I was really impressed by with Mercury Filmworks is you have a program where artists, it's called Mercury Shorts, and artists contribute, or artists work on it like during their hours at Mercury Filmworks, and I've seen just like really wild shorts. I saw a horror short from Shane Plant. I saw just a variety of like really interesting and ambitious projects. And is that part of the like talent development that Mercury Filmworks tries to do to instill in artists?
Yes. I think everyone sort of gets like a bit of an itch to do their own thing and not just sort of be stuck in just working on like productions. Obviously they get paid for it and they're quite happy to get those checks. But sometimes there's a creative itch that needs to be scratched, and by allowing the animators or the artists to scratch that itch. It just it rejuvenates their creative spirit and allows them to like try things that typically they wouldn't get the opportunity to do, in terms of like like Shane, he was able to do everything himself, and he was able to do the backgrounds in Toon Boom. He was able to do the rigs himself. Some of the people doing the shorts, they weren't able to do certain aspects themselves, but the studio was there to provide someone to help them do that. So it was good. It was a good opportunity to get people to a little bit out of their comfort zone, if without compelling them to do that, but and supporting them in their endeavor. And it just it paid a lot of dividends down the road in terms of their creative expression and feeling like they had an outlet for their creativity.
For a lot of artists who work in animation, their thesis film tends to be like the first and only time they get to produce an original animated short of their own vision. So it's cool to see like studios give artists other means of expressing themselves and developing their talent. Anthony, how do you describe Mercury Filmworks and the type of animation that the studio specializes in?
So to further sort of emphasize what Graham and Kim have said, a lot of the projects that we take on usually are sort of more difficult projects, if you will, and every project that we've had would come with a new set of challenges, which we would have to overcome. And it's been like that for years, where we'd get a show, it had challenges, and we'd solve them, and the show would look great. But then the next show that came along, we would have to take everything we learned from the last production and then deal with a whole new set of challenges. But I think the people here thrive on that kind of challenge, and when we do overcome it and we see the final product, then that's reward enough. And I think that's the type of animation that we do here, is the stuff that a lot of people, maybe a lot of other studios maybe shy away from, or maybe it's not like budget friendly or whatever, but I think we really enjoy the challenge of trying to solve those problems.
Well, I know that my colleagues really enjoy working with studios that push the envelope, because you keep us sharp. When you give us like support tickets and say, hey, this one feature is not acting the way that we thought it would, it forces us to make our software even better. So, Anthony, I wanted to ask you, how do you describe your journey to your current role at Mercury Filmworks?
Wow. I feel like this is going to be like one of those lists where it's like, if you recognize this, then you're officially old. Like Concerto before it was Harmony, and like that dark gray Cintiq with the red buttons on it. So I basically started in Ottawa, straight out of school, and I became a posing supervisor, like a hand-drawn posing supervisor. And just at the cusp of sort of the transition where the industry really shifts from hand-drawn to sort of 2D digital, that's when Mercury opened up in Ottawa. And I was just finishing my last job supervising posing, and that was sort of the last project from that studio, and they were really winding down. And Mercury was just starting up. Their first production was Mr. City. And a friend called me up and said, hey, we need some people to do like designs and turnarounds and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing was working on Mercury during the day and moonlighting my supervising job in the evenings. The original plan was for us to do turnarounds and sort of hand positions, mouth positions on paper, and those were to be scanned in, then cleaned up on a Cintiq, and then sort of put into a rig. But then sort of we played around with the Cintiq, we played around with Concerto, and we realized that sort of we could combine all those into sort of just one department. And that's sort of how the rigging department was born at Mercury. It was just like the two of us. And I've been there ever since.
It's kind of amazing that you get to see sort of how the industry changed and developed new tools to work on productions. Because like there were like multiple different waves of like the way things could have gone. It could have all been like xerography or who knows what. Um, and I think it's just really interesting, like how production pipeline shook out. Kim, how would you describe your journey to your current role at Mercury Filmworks?
So I've been in HR talent management for quite some time now, probably close to 20 years. And I've worked in many other industries, which is what makes HR such a cool profession, because you can work in various industries. So I've only worked in the animation industry for 2 years. Prior to that, I worked in construction and retail. So it was a very different move for me because it's a lot to learn. I'm still learning every single day. I feel like if I'm going to, if I'm here 20 years from now, I'll still be learning. Like I said, it's just, it's really a truly amazing experience to watch what our artists do and what they can accomplish. And I can barely draw a stick figure. So I'm really impressed with what everyone does. So yeah, that's what got me here. Just my love for helping people and supporting talent and helping people to grow and develop in their careers.
Yeah, well, I think what's really cool is that like animation is an industry like many others, where you have employees who are all working to make a thing. So it's not that dissimilar in a lot of ways. And I think what you see also is like there are a lot of artists who start their own studios and then realize, oh wait, I need to think about like payroll and HR and running the business side of the business. And everybody kind of needs to be doing their job for things to function, or else you don't have a studio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Graham, how would you describe your journey to your current role at Mercury Filmworks?
Eerily similar to Anthony. I think we graduated in 97, right?
98.
98, okay. Yeah, but I'm a little bit older. I'm a year older than Anthony, but we experienced the same transition from 2D, hand-drawn, pencil on paper part of the industry into the digital era around the turn of the last century. Like Anthony said, all the 2D studios here were like shutting down because of the transition. They weren't able to make that transition. Thank God Mercury decided to open a studio here to take advantage of the glut of soon to be out of work animators. So I came on, I guess it was about 21 years ago now when Mercury first started here in Ottawa. And I came on, I was as an animator on the night shift working on the second episode of the first series that we did at Mercury, which is Mischief City. And I worked my way from animator to being an animation supervisor to being an animation director, did a few storyboards here and there, and then became like a director. So I sort of worked my way up from the bottom all the way up to director. So it's the 20-year journey, but yeah, that's the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a really fascinating time in like the animation industry, because there had been like a really large animation industry in the 80s in Canada that went through a bust cycle in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's really amazing that it came back. That there are so many studios in Ottawa that produce amazing work, like Mercury Filmworks. The question I wanted to ask: so Mercury Filmworks first opened its door in Vancouver. their doors in Vancouver in 1997 and moved to Ottawa in 2004. In your view, how has the animation industry changed since you started at Mercury Filmworks, both in terms of business and art? And Graham, we'll start with you.
How's the animation industry changed?
Yeah, how has the animation industry changed since about 2004-ish?
Since the transition to digital, I don't know if it's really changed that much. At least from my perspective here, we sort of when Mercury started, we didn't have any, because there was Flash animation around at the time, but we didn't really have anyone that had done that before. So basically, everyone that came on at Mercury was, like I said, unemployed or soon to be unemployed, traditional 2D animators. So all the sort of like the pipelines and the workflows that we have and that we, by and large, still use today were sort of developed out of, I don't know what we're doing, so we'll just try stuff, and I guess that's how it's supposed to go, which is kind of, I mean, it's a haphazard way to do it, obviously, but it seemed to work because, and I think the great advantage of that, I think about it now and then, is that we didn't have any, there was no, we didn't feel compelled to follow a set workflow that had been established for like a Flash workflow. We didn't have that. This is the way it needs to be done. So obviously that's the way we're going to do it. It's like we had to sort of create it ourselves from a 2D animation point of view, and we created something that worked for our needs at the time with the people we had. And I think that's that sort of mindset and workflow which we carried forward. Like I said, I mean, there's obviously been tweaks along the way, but by and large, it's probably still pretty much intact. And I think that's probably a good indication of, or it's a good reason why some of the work that we do is maybe looks different than other places, because we sort of, and we never felt compelled by the, or constrained by the limitation or the limitations of rigged animation, where a lot of it can end up looking like really flat and sort of like rotatey, if not done correctly. But we always strove to try to get dimension and structure and performance out of the characters, because that was our background in the late 90s was all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, like the productions that you see from Mercury, you don't have characters, they're just sort of moving their arms on pivot points. You are doing things like foreshortening limbs, and deforming, different assets so that it looks like it's moving in 3D space. It's not just paper doll. Yeah,
exactly. And that's and working a lot with Anthony and the team in the rigging department to try to there was a lot of, still there's like a lot of cross pollination in terms of like the animators saying we need the rigs to do this, and then it might seem like it's impossible, but I think like on Toon Puddle is probably one of the first ones where we manipulated the software in a way that it was never meant to be used to try to get dimension out of flat 2D artwork that was created in the program, just by sort of like cheating it with like heavy separation of parts and moving all those separated parts slightly differently to try to get like a sense of dimension.
And I think that's where, so to answer your question, so I mean, animation is always going to be a business, so you're always going to be sort of limited by budget and schedule. But on the art side, like Graham said early on, the scope of your story, the complexity of your designs, your artistic vision, animation style, those are all limitations as well. But over the years, as we developed new techniques, software became more capable, suddenly the art form can evolve, right? So it sort of became this leapfrogging effect where it's like, okay, well, we can't really do that effectively. So for this budget and schedule, this is what we can offer you. But then the next time that comes around, it's like, okay, well, now we can do more. And sort of that's how the art side of it evolved as sort of we were able to do more and more with what we had.
Yeah, I'm always really fascinated by the sort of strengths and challenges in 2D animation, because when you see those interviews with like writers who are like writing for animation for the first time, they'll say things like, in animation, we have an unlimited special effects budget. In animation, we can do anything.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that are really easy to do in animation. You know, you drop in a background and you can be in a different scene or area. But then if you need like a crowd shot with like 1,000 people in attendance in an audience, that gets really difficult.
Yeah, crowds are I mean, it's a challenge for no matter how you do it, because if you either draw it all by hand, it's a huge headache because it's so much pencil mileage. If you do it, like in Toon Boom, the challenge is always like you can only have it, you know, the more things you put in the scene, the slower it gets, and eventually you can't do anything in the scene. So just trying to find like creative ways to add crowds. If by like using symbol, we tried the symbol route at one point, particles.
Someone has to design all the incidental characters.
Yeah, it's a lot. I find the best, and for crowd specifically, the best thing to do is sort of like an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different attempts to put like, you know, held design elements in the back, and then like actual and limited rigs sort of like in the middle that can just sort of like move their arms, and then actual like full rigs in the front, and you get like a good sense that the crowd is huge and has enough movement by doing that. So
yeah, I think it's fascinating how productions approach those problems of, okay, we know this is difficult to do. How do we create the effect that the scene needs to have? And I think that's just a fascinating way of approaching it. Anthony, I want to ask you, from your point of view, how has the animation industry changed since you started at Mercury Filmworks, both in terms of the business and the art?
So to elaborate on what I said earlier, early on, if you take a look at the animation that was done back then, even what we did, we were learning the software. So the animation that we were capable of was limited. And then even as we learned more, we sort of used those limitations that were standards, and we would be like, okay, you know, those design choices are not animation friendly, so could we avoid those? But as we learned more and more and the software became better and better, then we would solve these problems, and the next time a client came around, you know, it got to the point where we would be like, okay, you know what, design it however you want, and we're going to solve your problems, and we'll find a way to make it work. So, you know, the art style has definitely evolved. The budgets and the schedules are always going to be what they are. But we're at a point today where we have a lot of confidence that we can do whatever the client needs and, you know, create a great product. So for me, that's how I've seen the art side of it evolve. You know, whatever story you want to tell, whatever animation style you want, whatever designs you have, we'll try our best to make it work.
Kim, from your point of view, how has the animation industry changed since you started at Mercury Filmworks, both in terms of the business side and the art?
Difficult for me to say. I have only been, like I mentioned earlier, I've only been in animation for about 2 years now. So, you know, lately it's a little slow in the industry as a whole. And so from my personal point of view, haven't seen too many changes, but looking forward to the future and seeing how things will continue to change and evolve.
Mercury Filmworks has provided animation services for projects like Kid Cosmic, The Ghost Molly McGee, Strange Planet, as well as the Bob's Burgers movie, all excellent productions. In your view, what kinds of productions are the team at Mercury Filmworks most interested in? Kim, from your point of view, like, what do you think that the talent at Mercury is most excited on working on?
I would say it varies. I think our artists just they're ready and willing to work on anything and everything. They want to get their hands on anything that they can, and they're ready to dive into whatever opportunities come up. I think that Anthony talked about challenges. I think for the most part, if we have someone who maybe their style is a little bit different, they may have a preference of something they want to get into, but they're still ready and willing to dive into anything that they can.
Graham, from your point of view, what kind of productions are the team at Mercury Filmworks most interested in working on?
I'd say projects that are like fun and engaging, that give the animators a sense of creative fulfillment. Because if the animators are having fun working on the shows that they're working on, the work is going to reflect that. It's just going to be stronger. And like I think Anthony mentioned earlier, stuff that moves us forward. That's not like the same repetitive kind of show over and over again, because that can get stale too. So having like a variety of different style shows is also a good opportunity for people to maybe like stretch their wings a bit more creatively by trying like different styles that they might not be accustomed to but want to try. So I think that's the kind of just fun shows that when the shows are done and they get to watch them and they can still laugh at the jokes, and then I think those are the kinds of shows that we really like getting.
Yeah, I think like one through line that I see through the productions that Mercury Filmworks does is the productions are all very ambitious. And the characters do things where you'll see people online list them as examples of like hand-drawn 2D shows. It's like, I'm pretty sure that was rigged.
Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of cool that it can fool people who say, hey, I like only 2D hand-drawn. Well, you liked that show too. Anthony, from your point of view, what kinds of productions are the team at Mercury Filmworks most interested in working on?
Basically what Kim and Graham said. I will add that one thing that sort of is missing from our repertoire are action shows. And I know Mercury's been trying to sort of get some of that kind of work. And I think there are enough people here that would sort of enjoy working on a show like that. It would be definitely a change in pace and it would present new challenges. So I think that would be a cool project to have as well.
Kim, I wanted to ask you, how would you describe the workplace culture of Mercury Filmworks?
Very much a team environment. We work very collaboratively together. There's a lot of coaching and mentoring and support. Anywhere from, our artists getting support from their supervisors getting support from department heads. It is a very, very supportive environment. A space where, people are able to be creative and express themselves in a way that they know they won't be judged. And if anything, everyone's able to celebrate, I think, their work and their the creativeness that they're able to bring to the table, to the company. And I think I'd mentioned it earlier, but just being innovative and pushing our boundaries, pushing each other, encouraging each other along the way, being okay with making mistakes. It's one thing I hear. It's okay to make a mistake. It's just, what are we learning from it? How are we avoiding it in the future? Being committed, passionate, Everyone here, like I said earlier, is so passionate about what they do. And I think Graham had mentioned it too. It's always about, at the end of the day, it's about having fun. You know, we make cartoons. We have to have fun doing it. There's some really long days, long weeks sometimes, a lot of pressure, and we know that. But we really just need to be here to support our artists and make sure that we all have fun doing the work that we do every day.
Graham, how do you describe the workplace culture at Mercury Filmworks?
I'd say that, not to be repetitive of what the others have said, but I'd say that there's like a great amount of pride that people have in the work that they do, and I find that not that they're boastful or anything. That's not what I mean. I mean, they take a great sense of like ownership, and they really want to do the very best that they can, and I think that really unites people in a sort of like working towards the common goal of getting the shows done on time, but also at the sort of elevated, like executed in an elevated fashion that we always strive to do as well.
And Anthony, how would you describe the workplace culture at Mercury Filmworks?
Similar to what they said, definitely. I think the mentality of a lot of the people here is, we get those challenging shows, and, regardless of what the client has asked for, it's the people here want to plus it, right? And everybody supports everybody else, like all the way throughout the pipeline. And we all try to make it the best product we can. So there's definitely that sort of culture here where everybody wants to put their best foot forward. And then, at the end of the day, they've made something that they can be proud of. So that's the way I see it.
Anthony, you mentioned plussing. Do you want to just tell our audience like what plussing means?
So basically anything that makes the show look better. Like when you first get a project in, there'll be designs, and there'll be an established animation style, and an effect style and compositing and everything. But along the way, all our departments find a way to make those things look just that much better. Like we'll add extra acting in the animation stage. The effects, we'll design really cool looking effects, and compositing, we'll add all sorts of visual effects to make the final product look amazing. And they're just, everybody here is really just want to wow the audience,
Anthony and Graham, you've both worked up to leadership roles at Mercury Filmworks, so I wanted to ask you, have you learned anything about working and collaborating with artists at your time at the studio?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Both, years ago when I was just animating and learning from the supervisors and the people around me that were also animating, always like trying to see what others are doing and staying in the loop, and if they're learning like new techniques of how to do something in the program, and trying to learn that as well, and then all the way through to directing the animation, and just seeing what like on the Mickey shorts, for example, when I was overseeing the animation there. There's a lot of times where I'm checking the animation and I'm like frame by framing what the animators did, just to say, how did they do that? So, okay, I see. Oh, yeah, I get it. And learning that way too, and just having sort of and then talking with the other directors on how did you run into this problem on your show, and how did you solve it, and just trying to, there's a lot of talk amongst people to just try to share knowledge in general.
I think that's always amazing in a studio. Anthony, with your role where you're working with animators and rigging artists to make the rigs work better for animation, do you have any advice for working, collaborating with artists?
Just keep the communication open. That's the biggest thing. We're always trying to strike that balance between, achieving the design, giving the animators what they need, but not overbuilding so that scenes are slow and everything. But there are a lot of things that you can't anticipate, and a lot of things that as a builder you might think would work a certain way, but then you talk to the animators and they're like, okay, no, we prefer it this way. So you definitely have to keep the channels of communication open. And like to sort of elaborate on what Graham said, you're constantly dealing with different departments and learning what their needs are and what their preferences are, and then that allows us to make better builds that not only support animation but like everybody down the pipeline as well.
We're getting a lot of questions in the chat about portfolios and advice to students. So Kim, do you have advice for artists and animators who are interested in sending a portfolio to a studio like Mercury Filmworks?
Yeah, so 3 kind of main themes or things that animators should consider is make sure that you're showcasing your technical skills. So ensuring that you have strong body mechanics in your reel, using like a run or weight assignment. So, is there an opportunity to do some heavy lifting? Ensure that your reel has clear and solid foundations, because the people who are looking at your reel, they can see the basics through your style. Acting is a big one. So ensure that you have a dialogue or acting scene and make sure to bring emotion to that scene. And lastly, in those 3 is make sure that you are having fun with your reel. We really want to see your personality, and it goes a really long way with our team here at Mercury. And when you're deciding what to put in your reel, make sure that it reflects who you are as an artist. And keep in mind too that when we're going through portfolios, we're usually able to gauge within the first few clips, or they're able to pull out what what the team's looking for, within the first few clips. So be sure to keep it short, 1 to 2 minutes max. And always put your strongest stuff at the front, because again, like I said, the artists are able to gauge and get a sense of what they're looking for within the first few clips. Ensure that you are showcasing different skills. Show us your artistic skills. So we want to see strong draftsmanship. And show your best work, not all of your work. That's a big one. Again, sometimes we see reels that come through that are long, and people are feeling like they just have to fill up the space. But if you keep it to those 3 things of ensuring that you have the technical things in there, you show some acting, have fun with it, do it within 1 to 2 minutes. And a big thing that I also like to mention is that it's not for us here at Mercury, it's not solely about what you do from a technical standpoint, but it's also about how you do it. So we look at people's reels first. That gets them in the door from a technical standpoint. But it's really important for us, for all of our artists, anyone that works for Mercury, to exhibit and demonstrate our core behaviors and what we want to see around things like teamwork, collaboration, respect, innovative ideas, being proactive, all of those things matter in what we do every day. So again, not about what you can do, it's also about how you do it.
So those soft skills, they're really important, that make being in the studio pleasant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Graham, from your point of view, do you have advice for artists and animators who are interested in sending a portfolio to a studio like Mercury?
Um, Nothing beyond, I think, what Kim stated. It's pretty uh, really make sure that the fundamentals there are there of the animation, and definitely make sure that your strongest work is first. And so don't go like chronological, or don't put your student film and then work your way up to where you currently are. Go the opposite way. Always have the strongest and most current work first.
And Anthony, I know you get a lot of questions from rigging artists about portfolios and what should I show and what sorts of rigs do people look for. So from your point of view, what's your advice for artists now, for rigging artists who are interested in sending a portfolio to a studio like Mercury?
For rigging artists, actually, first and foremost, we look for drafting skills because like being able to clean up the design, do extra views, do mouth charts, do heads, and the great thing about sort of 2D rigging animation is the rigs that we build, that's what goes on screen. So without strong drafting skills, then it doesn't matter how technical you are. So that's what we look for first and foremost. Some people will include rigs, which definitely help. Like knowledge of the software being used will help, but I would say drafting skills first and foremost.
Hey, we got a question in the chat from Action Rover who's asking, can you ask what their favorite shows they've worked on are? So, Anthony, without naming shows that are currently under NDA, what is the favorite project that you got to contribute to?
I think it would probably either be Tangled or Pen Zero. Those shows were both a combination of great designs, good writing, good people to work with, as well as a slew of challenges that we had to overcome. So I think those were my favorite.
Yeah, I think that Tangled was definitely a show that raised the benchmark for what people expected from 2D rigged animation. So that's really cool. Graham, without naming productions that you can't currently name, what is your favorite production that you've worked on at Mercury?
The Mickey Mouse shorts, for sure.
Those are fantastic.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they're so much fun, and it never got old. Even though I think I worked on them for like 8 years straight or something like that, but it never got tiring.
Kim, I wanted to ask you, what do you hope to see more of from the animation industry over the next 30 years?
Well,
Zoom out.
I'd love to see, I know again, right now things are a little bit slow. So would love to see some more opportunities coming through for artists. From what I watch, it's just things are just constantly getting better and better. And again, can't speak to the technical side, but from the audience side and for our artists, just again, opportunity for people to continue to be creative, to learn and continue to grow, especially for artists who are joining the industry, new to their career, graduating from school, to have there continue to be opportunity for them to grow and develop, to learn new skills, to have the technology continue to grow in a way that the artists are able to use it and benefit from it.
I think something that we've seen over the past, I want to say the past decade, is we've seen shows that just didn't exist before, reaching different audiences and new audiences. And I think that's really cool, and it has opened up a lot of opportunities. Graham, from your point of view, what do you hope to see more of from the animation industry over the next 30 years?
I'd say more. I'd like to see more like creator-driven shows, and more just like more experimentation and more fun creatively, in terms of like allowing, giving maybe a little more rope to the people creating the work to push the boundaries of what's possible, and in terms of like the limitations of storytelling in the TV animation specifically, but pushing the boundaries and not sort of like settling on, well, this is the way it's always been done, and this is the way that show did it, so I guess that's the way we have to do it. Like just saying, like forgetting all what's done, and just take what's just stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before, and just sort of like move things forward, and not just sort of get stuck in the quagmire of what's deemed to be the only way to do things. Just more creativity. We need more spark.
That sounds a lot like Mercury Filmworks' origin story in Ottawa.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess.
Anthony, what do you hope to see more from the animation industry over the next 30 years?
Well, that time I'll probably be watching by the sidelines, but in a similar vein, like I think animation is always going to be similar in that you've got people trying to tell compelling stories and ideas, but the medium, the technology is going to change. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and hopefully we get another sort of maybe like a transition that we get to witness, like the transition from hand drawn to 2D digital, something dramatic in that sense. That would be kind of cool to see.
All right, well, we are running out of time. Kim, where can artists go to learn more about Mercury Filmworks?
So if you are interested in learning more, you can go to our website. It's mercuryfilmworks.com. And we have tons of information there. We have our shows we've worked on. You can keep an eye out for job postings there as well. See some of the members of our team. There's a lot of great information on our site.
And Graham, Anthony, where can people go to see some of the productions that you've worked on?
Some of the productions, I guess, like Netflix or Disney Plus. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's about it. Apple TV.
Apple TV.
Yeah, those are the three big platforms, I guess.
And which productions would you say people should go check out if they want to learn what Mercury Filmworks done recently?
There's a lot to do.
Hilda's going to be a big one, right?
Hilda, which just wrapped up their last season, would be
gorgeous.
That's on Netflix. Kid Cosmic is also on Netflix. Centaur World's on Netflix. Strange Planet is on Apple TV. And then obviously Mickey Mouse and Wander Over Yonder and Kik Patowski and stuff like that. That's all on Disney Plus. Molly McGee, yeah, that's good too. It's on Disney Plus.
Excellent shows. Thank you, Graham, Anthony, and Kim, for taking time to discuss your work, and thank you to our audience for joining us as well.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, you might be interested in our instructor-led training sessions at toonboom.com/training. We cover the basics like Introduction to Harmony and Storyboard Pro, to advanced courses on rigging and compositing. Next Thursday, April 4th, Marie-Eve Lasselle will be running a live art stream. You won't want to miss it. So thank you all for joining us. We hope that you have a happy Easter long weekend, and be sure to tune in next time.